Alrighty, so I wanted to have a quick conversation with you this morning about how to qualify for a carrier trip. Well, let's start from the beginning. What is a carrier trip? The insurance companies that we sell for, final expense, mortgage protection, whatever it may be, often have incentives for giving them business. And the incentives that I enjoy the most are the carrier trips. The insurance company has a sponsored trip to some tropical, amazing, expensive destination, and you can qualify for that trip if you put up a certain amount of business. This year, for example, American Amicable has a trip to Buenos Aires for $95,000 in personal production. Liberty Bankers just recently announced a trip, $75,000 on a Norwegian cruise. Columbia Financial, $80,000 for Grand Cayman, and Transamerica has a domestic trip for $75,000. Many of these carriers have these trips. Whatever company you sell the most and prefer the most, see if they have an incentive trip as well. But how do you qualify for this trip? Let's specifically look at the numbers so you can write this down and keep yourself on track for making this trip. Little credibility before we get into that though. I, as a personal producer, have qualified for 2 trips. One, Transamerica to Hawaii, great trip, memorable, never to be forgotten, and one that never happened. Thanks COVID, the Greece trip by American Amicable in 2020 never happened, but I still qualified for it. So let's take a look at how you can know the numbers and qualify for a carrier trip. Now let's take the biggest one I listed, $95,000 for Buenos Aires. Maybe you don't want to go on that trip, maybe you don't write that company, but maybe that's a number you have to hit. $95,000 over the course of 12 months looks a little bit like this. First off, you need to factor in lapses. You need to factor in the fact that everybody you write isn't going to keep their policy. You need to keep that in mind and add an additional 20% to the number that you have to hit. So if you have to write 95,000, you actually have to write 114,000 when you factor in average persistency. Sounds like a lot, right? But now let's break that down and see how it's achievable. Over the course of 50 weeks, let's say you take a week off for being sick and a week off for going on vacation, 50 weeks out of the year, you need to write 2,280 minimum every single week to stay on track for 114,000 over the course of a year. But that's only $190 a month in premium. Sounds achievable, right? But let's get realistic. That's a big number to hit. That's a big number for anyone to hit. And here's a couple guidelines on how you can make sure that you hit it. Number 1, that needs to be the main carrier that comes out of your bag every single time that you can. That means that needs to be the main carrier you go into the home looking to write every single chance you have. There's going to be new products that come out this year, new changes, lower rates, sexier toys. You got to stay with the one that you picked. A month of writing somebody different because you fell off track is a month you can prevent yourself from qualifying for this trip. You need to make sure you maintain good persistency. That means just because Miss Johnson missed her first payment doesn't mean you come back the next month and write her with somebody else. You have to maintain good placement. You have to maintain good persistency. You have to maintain good quality business, or you could write 200,000, but if your persistency blows, they're not going to let you go on the trip. It's 100% doable if you stay the course, know the numbers, remain focused on that company, and write good quality business. Whatever carrier you pick this year, stay focused on it and enjoy the fruits of your labor when you qualify for a carrier trip.